It's still blank for me on both screens.
Make sure your sound is up. Hello! Welcome to ChiTownBio Plays Animal Crossing. It's great to have you guys here. We already have some people, it looks like, in the game, helping us out, watering some roses. So we are going to talk today about the science and genetics of Animal Crossing. So, got some claps over there for that.
It's still blank for me on both screens.
Make sure your sound is up. Hello! Welcome! Alright, welcome everybody. Hang on. Let's see, I'm trying to make some joy emotions. There we go. Welcome everyone. So I just wanted to start off introducing us in the stream. We've got, I am Jordan. We have, over here, we have Pete, who's actually next to me
everybody.
In the game. What was your title in the game? Something punk?
Occasional punk.
Occasional punk Pete. And I don't remember what my title even is. But we are Pete. We've got Pete. We have the photos up in the corner. I'm Jordan. We've got Pete in the game. Andy is here. He's the president of ChiTownBio. He knows nothing about Animal Crossing, so he is not in the game, and this will all be a complete surprise to him. And then we have Khalid, who was here a minute ago, but wanted to give up his place to someone else, and he made a character literally 3 hours ago. Can everyone in the chat... Oh, my husband is being a troll in the comments. Kyle, what are you doing?
He's being supportive.
Yeah, he's being supportive. Thanks, Kyle. So, let's see. Let's talk first about who we are and what we're doing here. Also, can we get a confirmation in the chat from people that you can hear us, you can see the game, I guess hearing the music is secondary. But can you hear us, and can you see what's going on in-game? Maybe wait for people in the chat. We got that? Got +1. Excellent. Alright, if you have any trouble hearing us or seeing anything, please let us know in the chat. But we are ChiTownBio. ChiTownBio is a grassroots biology organization in the city of Chicago. What we would like to do is set up a lab where people can experiment with biology and sort of do hands-on learning. We want to teach classes, we want to have memberships. However, COVID-19 has made this very difficult, so we are trying to make more virtual events, so we figured it'd be fun to do some science in Animal Crossing, since we can't meet in person and do fun science events with the public. We're gonna do some live streaming, and we might actually come up with other maybe other video games to stream. If anyone in the chat has some ideas for some fun science-themed video games, let us know, maybe we can stream those. I had an idea for Kerbal Space Program with some life support mods. Maybe talk about the biology of space travel. Yeah, Pete, that'd be pretty cool, I think. Although Kerbal Space Program is really hard, so I don't know how that would work. I am really bad at it. I can barely get into space without burning up. Anyway, so thanks to everyone in the game for watering the roses. If you have watered the roses and want to sort of wander around the island, I've hidden things around. If you just want to explore, take some fruit, talk to my villagers. I just had Lionel move in. He's very charming. I like him a lot. He is a smug lion who wears like a fancy coat. But yeah, so we can't really do in-person events, so we're going to do this. And also, tell us in the chat who you are and where you're watching from, and a little bit about yourselves too. I also am interested in hearing if anyone is involved in museum or other cultural, like, natural institutions kind of work, because this whole video for Animal Crossing was actually inspired by the Monterey Bay Aquarium is doing some fantastic very fantastic public engagement and work, streaming Animal Crossing and talking all about the fish and ocean critters that they have in the game, because they're very well versed in fish and other aquatic wildlife, and I am not, so don't ask me about the fish or the insects, but definitely ask us about the flowers and anything about genes, which we'll definitely go into a lot in a minute. So yeah, so what are we seeing in the chat?
We actually have a viewer from the Philippines, which is really awesome. Thanks, Sot, for checking us out.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Oh, it looks like, so I wasn't sure if I'd be able to see some of the comments, but I am actually able to see. Looks like we have someone involved in the shed. That's amazing. Liquid zoo. Hey, Reagan. Liquid zoo animals. That's awesome. Field museum. Oh, we have some awesome museum people. Well, thank you. If you are into museums, definitely check out the Monterey Bay Aquarium stream with Emily and Patrick. They are doing an amazing job. I've learned a lot about...
I put a link in the chat so that people should be able to find that if they want to go back after we're done and watch that.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely go watch the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and I'll, as we go along and look at the museum, talk about some of the things that I have learned from watching their streams. So we're gonna start off. Let's see. Everyone. So it looks like people have watered the flowers. Thank you very much, and maybe wandering around looking for prizes. So also I gotta remember to take pictures of this. I'm not a great Animal Crossing photographer, but let's see. Joy. Cool. And then we'll get some pictures with people over here. Oh, Pete, let's take a picture. Turn around. Pete?
Pete, did you take off your mask? I thought that was a pretty cool piece of your costume there.
Sorry, I lost people
I
for a
think Jaden had a
second.
good point, though, that this is like a quarantine-free place.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little chance to escape. So
yeah. There is no...
It's important for everyone to wear your mask.
Yes.
I thought it was for allergies because of all the pollen due to the beautiful flowers.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Let's put it back on.
I really just loved the reminder to everyone that it's still a nice thing to do to other people to wear your mask.
Yeah.
So.
I am clear of COVID symptoms, and there is no COVID on Island Jam. Okay, we're gonna take a picture.
Okay.
Do an emote.
Okay.
Okay. Happy emotes. That's a little blurry.
As
That'll
our
be fine.
resident old man, this makes no sense. But yay!
We'll explain Animal Crossing to you as we go. So if you do not play Animal Crossing, the short version of what this game is basically you move to a deserted island, untouched by humanity, and a raccoon named Tom Nook gives you a loan for a house, and you keep building up your house, and you're in debt to him until you pay it off. Oh, someone's here. Huh. Wait, someone is coming. I guess we'll be interrupted for a second by the very long multiplayer menu that's really bad.
Yeah, that's me. I'm joining. My daughter's playing, but I'm joining with my account.
As a great reminder, too, just for those of us in Chicago, we have problems with people approaching and trying to trade with raccoons. It's wonderful that people are doing this in a game, but if you see a raccoon on the Lakeshore Path, do not give them food or try to trade anything with them. If you have a turnip, keep it to yourself. The raccoons there are wonderful organisms to be able to see in the wild, but we want to make sure that we keep them wild here in Chicago.
What
Thank
if
you.
he's offering like 500 bells?
Thank you for that lovely piece of commentary, Andy. And yes, what if he gives you bells?
Don't trust a raccoon in the wild that's giving you bells. Just a general great rule of thumb. Yeah, we'll leave that one out there.
Okay.
Hello, welcome, Caden.
Yeah, so that's definitely not me. I'm trying to join, but I don't know what I'm doing here.
That's okay. Also, I don't know if anyone has yet noticed my island theme song, but let me know when you do, because it's lovely. So yeah, we keep getting sidetracked, and I forget what I was going to do next. Okay, so we got all these flowers. Yes, Animal Crossing, lovely game where you basically you move to this island and you build it up. You get to decorate your house. You decorate the island. You get to collect lots of bugs and fish and donate it to this lovely museum up here. I am running, and you should not, because I don't want you to accidentally trample the flowers, but I know where everything is, so I can run. So you give it up to this museum here, and you can build up your museum, which we'll go into in a little bit, which is beautiful. And the other thing that we're going to talk about that you can do in this game is you can plant flowers. And the interesting thing about the flowers is that if you've just gotten in, please water the flowers and do not run or pick them. That would be really helpful.
Jordan, someone was saying that they couldn't hear your song. Is there a way that you could tool up the volume just a tiny little bit so that people could hear it?
Yeah,
over the stream?
You can only the song will happen when we go to a menu. What? Hang on, let me type in the chat. So there's also a very clunky water flowers. Jurassic, yeah, okay. Someone spoiled the surprise. So the song only happens when you open certain menus and talk to certain people, so I have not talked to people yet who actually have the song, but we'll see it in a second. I was more thinking for people who are on the island, who are talking to different people and opening different menus. We'll see it in a second though. I forgot about that. Let's see. So, sorry, what happened? I'm sure it's fine.
We're all good. We're just waiting you were starting to say something, and I think we interrupted you. So.
That's okay. There's a lot of things going on at once. This is also the first time that we have streamed this, so this is a huge experiment for us.
You're doing a great job. Keep going.
Thank you. Oh, I think... No, this is a new one. Never mind. So, one of the things that you can do in Animal Crossing is breed flowers. And what you might not know about this, or may have heard, and we're going to go into more depth, is that the flowers actually have a very complex genetic system. And they actually follow the rules of Mendelian inheritance. This is something you may not have thought about since high school biology, which you probably learned about it in high school biology, and it hasn't been relevant to you until maybe now since you're playing Animal Crossing. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Mendel, the man, Gregor Mendel, and what he discovered and what it has to do with these flowers. So there was this guy named Gregor Mendel. He was born in 1822. I knew that. And he was the son of a farmer. So he was very smart though, so he wanted to get an education, and the way you did that when you didn't have a lot of money back then was you go and join the monastery. So he became a monk. So I think some people are like, what do you mean this monk discovered genetics? It is because monasteries were a big cultural center at the time. So people would be studying astronomy, science, biology, plants, art, literature, all sorts of stuff. So you went and joined the monastery, and you became interested in teaching, kind of like Pete is interested in teaching. So Pete here is studying to be a science educator. Just a shout out to Pete.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So something that I find fascinating about Mendel is that he wanted to be a teacher. So he was also a very anxious person and was not very good at taking tests. So he kept flunking his teaching certification exams. So instead, he founded an entire field of science. So that's just something I like to think about, in that you sometimes will fail at one thing, and then maybe you'll invent something entirely new. So don't be down on yourself if you come into some roadblocks in your life. So Mendel, he didn't become a teacher. So at the monastery, he was sort of just given a bunch of space that he started breeding pea plants. So these these peas have flowers, and he started to notice when he was planting these flowers that when he bred them in certain ways, he would get certain patterns of inheritance of how the traits, which we would call now a phenotype, an observable trait, showed up in different generations of the flowers. So this is where Animal Crossing comes in. So I'm going to make an example over here. But in Mendel's time before he started working, people thought about genetics, which wasn't really genetics yet, but inheritance of how parents pass down their traits to other generations as a blended model. So in blended inheritance, you would take this purple flower and this white flower, and then you would always get maybe like, I guess, a lavender-ish flower. Like, it would be in between the purple and the white. But what we can see here in these flowers, because this has a Mendelian inheritance, is that sometimes you get a white flower and sometimes you get a purple flower. So sometimes they actually look like the parents. And Mendel also noticed that he would get a certain number of white flowers and a certain number of purple flowers. And what he discovered in breeding all these plants and from like noticing these offspring was that he came up with this idea of independent assortment and the law of dominance. So he figured out that these traits that he was seeing came from something that we now know as genes, but what he hadn't arrived at the idea of a gene yet, but he called them hereditary factors, and these factors could be either dominant or recessive. So a dominant a dominant factor, which we now call alleles, would mask the effect of a recessive allele. So that basically means if you have two of these factors, these two alleles of a gene, and they're both dominant, you're going to see, for example, let's say that the purple is dominant to the white in this flower that I'm hovering over here. You're going to see two dominants, you get a purple flower. Two recessives, which would be the white color, you would get a white flower. But if you have one dominant and one recessive, you don't get something blended in between like what people thought before Mendel, but you would get the dominant color, which would be like this purple flower that we've seen as the offspring of these two. So this is sort of the gist of what Mendel came up with, and it was really revolutionary. And he actually, I sort of like, while I am doing all this breeding, think about myself as Gregor Mendel, because I am planting just so many flowers. And this has probably only been maybe like 200 or so. And in his lifetime, in the 8 years that he was doing all these studies, he bred 15,000 plants. So Mendel was really dedicated to like what he was working on. And he was like, he founded an entire study of science, but not until like 40 years later. Because he wrote a paper about all his studies in about 1865. And then no one looked at it again. They sort of just stuffed it in a drawer, and no one really saw it until it was rediscovered in about the 1900s, like around 1900. So that was a lot. So I'm going to take a break and see if anyone has any questions about things in the chat that I have just said. And then I'll also give you some pro gamer tips while we are talking. Pro gamer tips. You should be here for the science and not for the Animal Crossing advanced gameplay, by the way. Although my island does have 5 stars, I was very excited that I finally put up enough stuff that Isabel deemed it worthy. Yes. I was very proud. So, pro gamer tips. So the reason I've asked everyone to go around and water all the flowers is that when you get multiple people watering the flowers, that means that the chances that they breed go up like a lot. So for each pair, the game is in real time, so things update every day. So the flowers each day only have a 5% chance of making offspring, but I have a bunch of them, so I still get a couple every day. But every person that you have, who everyone else who waters them, it goes up from like 5% to then 25%. And then when you have 5 or more people, it's about 80%. So that really helps. So yeah.
You know, I'm just curious. I don't want to step on your toes, but you were saying how Mendel's work kind of got buried for about 40 years just because. Are you going to talk about the controversy with De Vries and Spillman and the rediscovery of genetics in around 1905?
A little bit.
Okay, because I feel like that story is just so crazy town banana pants.
What part of the story did you want to talk about that's crazy town, Andy? Because you can jump in if you want.
So I am a trained biologist. I love biologists. I love scientists, and
wait a minute.
Scientists act like children.
Andy, I think actually we have maybe a better time to talk about this because maybe we'll stick for Mendel right here when we're in the flower part.
Okay.
Because then there is actually spoilers, a fly lab inside the museum that we're going to go up to here. So then we can talk about maybe the moving of genetics all the way from Mendel's pea plants and his flowers to different model organisms. Do you think that?
Sounds amazing. Yeah, I love it when scientists act like children, and so I think it's fun stories just because it humanizes the field a bit.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And with Mendel specifically, he struggles so much with like mental health and
absolutely
really, and failing. And I don't think that's like I remember in my biology class, and I've been thinking a little bit more about this because I'm going to become a teacher. Is you don't learn the sort of the human aspects. You only hear about like the hero Mendel who discovered genetics, but he was really like he worked really hard, and I think dismissing some of those like more human elements like sort of whitewashes that, right?
Yeah. And I think sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say that I think that that self-doubt and that questioning is really what allowed this to be buried, just because he was asked to try to replicate this on another plant and it just didn't work. So he tried it again with hawkweed instead of peas, and it just did not work. His experiments were not repeatable, and so it just kind of got buried, even though, because not all plants are going to have this really beautiful Mendelian inheritance pattern.
Yeah.
He got really lucky in what he chose, but that's true, and we can talk a little bit more once we've sort of moved forward in the history of genetics about what it is that made the pea plants work the way that they did.
And what apparently is making your roses look so shiny.
That is what happens when you water them. That's how you know that they've been watered. So they get shiny and they start sparkling. That's how.
That kind of happens in real life because of water's refraction properties. So, yeah.
Trying to add as much science into it as you can, Andy.
Video games don't make sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. You're a curmudgeonly old man. Or I guess only you can say that about yourself, is that you're a curmudgeonly old man.
I'm allowed. I mean,
Okay. All right. So what are these roses? How are they like Mendel's plants? And also, why am I growing this in this particular way? A lot of people in Animal Crossings kind of like to just put their flowers in a little like crisscross checkerboard pattern, and then sort of just see what happens. But I have these very meticulously laid out. What am I trying to do? So there are different. So first of all, there's more than just roses in the game. You have a lot of different flowers. You've got hyacinths, you got pansies, you have tulips, and one thing that I would say is that I've greatly reduced the biodiversity of my island by like covering it in roses. But I have a reason for doing that, which is that I am trying to get blue roses, and blue roses are the most rare flower in the game, and that I think is really brilliant on Nintendo's part. For a couple of reasons, because there are no blue roses. They do not naturally produce blue pigment. If you've ever seen a blue rose for whatever reason, it's been artificially dyed after it's been cut, or like the roots will take it up and take up blue dye, but they don't naturally produce that pigment. And actually, the color blue is actually very rare in the natural world. So I think it's really brilliant that Nintendo chose blue roses specifically, because they're also sort of like mysterious and sought after, so people are trying to genetically engineer them, which is really fascinating. Real quick, you guys, Andy, Hullid, and Isaac, are there any questions in the chat that people have that we might want to...
No, right now I think everyone is just along for the ride. We have 26 people watching right now, and this is great.
Awesome. All right, so if you ever have questions, like, just put them in the chat, and we'll stop and try to get to them. So, blue roses, people are trying to genetically engineer them, which is really an interesting story as well. So there were, in the mid-2000s, two companies called Florigene and Suntory that said, we're going to try to put this blue pigment into a rose. And this is hard for a couple of reasons. One is that they don't contain that natural pigment, or they don't contain the pathway that produces that pigment, and they also have a particular acidity in their petals that that sometimes, even if you do have the blue pigment, is going to turn it red. And that's because these pigments are called anthocyanins, and they're very responsive to pH or acidity. And this is actually a really fun experiment you can do at home while you're bored in quarantine, is buy a red cabbage and chop it up and put it in a blender or boil it or something. Just get the cabbage juice, and then put different household liquids or items that you have lying around, and see what color the cabbage juices will turn, because it starts out a purpley color, but if you put an acid in it, it will turn red, and if you put a base in it, it will turn blue or even green. So this happens with the roses. Even if you have that blue pigment, those anthocyanins, if the rose petals, the environment of the petals is too acidic, it's going to turn red. So what these groups, so Suntory specifically, was able to put that blue pigment pathway, they genetically engineered it, took that pathway out of a viola and put it in a rose, and then also used a technique called RNA interference, which Hullid knows a lot about, probably because Hullid studies RNA. He's the RNA resident wizard. But they used RNA interference to knock down and get rid of the signal from the red genes that they got in, because they used a red rose to start with. And they got a blue rose! Yay! Not really. It's sort of just like kind of purple. It didn't really work. They said it worked, but it didn't really. And this is because they had that problem with the acidity, and also RNA interference, which is a way that you can knock down the activity of genes, is only maybe like 70% effective, so you still have that leftover signal that is telling that rose to make red. So the history of blue roses, that's sort of, I haven't really seen anything being done on them since probably about 2011, but that's also a target for biohackers, I think, is like, or people doing community biology, like what we're trying to do is maybe make a blue rose.
I know there was a really big push from the biology lab at the School of Visual Arts in New York to try to develop a blue rose. About 5 or 6 years ago. It was a really big push for it. It's a huge grail for a lot of, like you said, biohackers out there.
So yeah, so it's sort of there's actually also like prizes for whoever can make a first blue rose by like some flower people. I don't know what you call them, but
yeah, I remember at one of our previous meetups talking to someone who was that was one of the things they wanted to work on.
Yeah. So in Animal Crossing you can get blue roses, and it is, however, very, very difficult. So the reason it's difficult is because, like I talked about how you have these genes, how there's different variations of each gene, you can have a purple flower that has different, and there's the idea of the dominant and recessive alleles that will both give you purple. There's a bunch of different combinations of the genes in Animal Crossing that will make purple, but there's only one combination that will give you blue, so it's really hard to get to because you have to take a specific pathway. And I won't say exactly what like that pathway is, but the gist of the beginning, and I am like on step 2.5 of this 6-step pathway, so I have not gotten super far. I'm sorry to disappoint you that I do not have a blue rose. I started this a couple weeks ago, so this takes a lot of time. Probably people have only done that because they time traveled. I am not really a time traveler though, so I do not. Andy, that means like resetting your clock so you can like skip forward a day.
Thank you.
Just so you are like aware of what that means in Animal
previous
Crossing.
versions of the game, there used to be a little mole that would yell at you when you would do that, when you would change the time to time travel. But I think they got rid of it in this one.
Yeah, no, I don't. Well, I've never done it, so I don't know what happens when you do it. So.
Yeah, I haven't done it either.
Yeah. What was I talking about? Oh, so step 1 is to breed a bunch of purple flowers, which you can breed from white flowers. So there are a couple of recessive alleles in there that will go, that will show up in the purple flowers that don't show up in the white flowers, that will give you purple. And you also need to make white from white and yellow. And then I don't have them here because I have a bunch of orange flowers already, but you predictably actually make red, you make orange from red and yellow. And then what you do is you cross the purple flowers with the white flowers and get more purple flowers. This is an interesting step because I'm going to pull up something on the screen now that Andy, Hollett, and Pete are not going to be able to see yet. But this is what the genetic structure of the purple and white roses looks like. That's on the screen right now. It's a little confusing looking, but this is pretty much, if you remember high school biology, you might remember doing something called a Punnett square to analyze these genes. And if you have more than one gene you're looking at a time, Punnett squares are kind of useless. So this is not a Punnett square, but this is sort of like looking at the percentage of each of these crosses that is giving you a certain color and what the genetic structure of it is. So what we want out of this is a purple rose from this cross of purple and white. However, as you can see, there are two possibilities for purple. So if I get purple offspring over here, I don't know which one to use for the next cross. So what you can do, and what people actually do, and this is something Mendel did to figure out the genetics of the parent, is you can cross an unknown, so this purple flower, with a known. So you have this yellow flower as one of the seed flowers. All the seeds in Animal Crossing have the same genome, or have the same genotype for red, white, and yellow. So you cross, this one is, you know what the gene is, this one you don't. So you cross it, and whatever the offspring are tell you, so here's the next bit, the offspring tell you what the parent is. So actually, the purple ones I want are going to give me all yellows, or half yellow and half white, but the wrong ones, if you see in the screen that's up here now, are all going to be white. So, because I see some yellow ones over here, wait, there we go. We know this is what I want. However, I have messed up. I had a brain fart when I set up all these flowers. These are too close to each other, so I would have known that there would be, like, which one of that one of these is correct, since I have this yellow flower. However, I don't know if it came from this pair or the bottom pair, so I'm gonna have to set these up again and just move some things around. Unfortunately, that was my brain fart, so I have to fix that. But I think the other steps are intact. So that's sort of my spiel about the flowers, and those are the first two steps of getting blue flowers. And I actually found a really cool guide that tells you all about this that you can I'll post later on in the chat and in the comments and on the other various event pages. So if you want to yeah,
the Punnett square is still up.
Oh, it's still up. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's gone now. Yeah,
It
sorry.
will be gone in a second or two.
Yeah, there's a bit of I have a budget capture card, so it is not, there's a bit of lag between when I'm actually talking and when it shows up on YouTube. Sorry about that, guys. But, oh, I have the statue of David over in the corner that has a art penis, by the way. Maybe I'll keep that up here, so this view will be what we see. Anyway, so that's sort of my spiel about Punnett squares and Mendel and genetics. I can post a link to the guy that I found about all the flower genes later on, and it's really interesting how people have like delved really deeply into the genes. There's actually also spreadsheets of like what is the gene, like all the possible gene combinations and what colors they are. It's like very impressive, and people have done this just by like data mining the game and sort of just looking. I don't know how that works. That would take some computer science literate people to know what that does.
Well, people might have just been amateur scientists and been experimenting with this on their own. I think a lot of people don't realize that they're doing some complex genetic experiments when they're just playing around on a game online.
Exactly. That is very true. But go ahead, Pete.
Oh, that's what I just thought was so beautiful about this system is like people data mined and found the code, but if someone spent enough time, they could set up all these Punnett squares themselves.
Absolutely. Or maybe not Punnett squares, because I don't know. I'm not very fond of Punnett squares. I think they're not super, I don't know. They are not...
I was about to say, you didn't use the traditional Punnett square when you were writing out the genotype.
Right, that's because there's 4 different ones, so it would be like 64 different squares? That would be really hard.
You can have a quadrahybrid cross.
A quadrahybrid cross? Okay, that sounds unwieldy.
I mean, remember, people have 23 distinct chromosomes, so you can do it with people to have a 23 hybrid cross. And if there are some organisms that have chromosome numbers that are
nice
the
emote, Pete. I like your emote. Thank you for the 23 chromosomes.
Distress.
I don't have the distress one. Hang on. I forget how I get to the main one. Oh, hang on. I don't use the emotes very much.
Pete, do you have is that a double helix on your shirt?
How did you find that?
It is. Oh, I made it.
Oh,
I'll
you
send
made
the
it?
code later.
Okay. Alright, I can't find the distress one. That's awesome. I looked for some of those, but there's a science flag out by the residential service building, by the way. I don't know if anyone noticed that coming in. Excuse me. Okay. So I think if anyone has any questions about the flowers in the chat, I think we will move on in a minute to the museum, which has a lot of cool stuff in it. I think it is one of my favorite things in the game.
I'm excited. Let's go.
Yeah, the museum's beautiful.
Yeah, alright. Let me post in the game to the museum.
So is this just for those of us who are watching and do not have the game itself? Is this your museum or is this a common museum?
So it all looks... So they all look the same, but you have to add the specimens to the museum, so you can't... I guess you get a really special reward if you, like, find all of them. But
cool.
not everyone has the whole thing filled out. I have all of my fossils, though. So I have found every fossil in the game. Let me see if Blathers will let me do anything.
I feel like there are some paleontologists out there who are very jealous of you right now, having found all of the fossils.
I found all of the fossils. So in addition to, let's see, music, yay. Tell me about this. Alright, I'm going to show... You can ask Blathers to tell you about things. I'm going to see if he'll tell me about the mola. Large, relatively.
So Andy Blathers is the museum director, and he is an owl that wears an argyle sweater.
He's the curator, yeah.
What? Sure.
Blathers seems to be a very popular man right now.
Everyone gathering around Blathers with attention. Tell me about this. Let's see.
I have some problems with Blathers, but I'll save that for another stream.
So we're going to also talk about the...
I feel like that is, you have to share.
We're going to talk about the mammoth.
Stay tuned till next episode.
Oh, your problems with Blathers?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? I feel like people can just talk to Blathers, figure out if you can figure out what's upsetting Pete about this owl.
It's probably about his attitude toward insects.
Yeah, that's what it is.
He hates bugs.
Oh.
He says that he'll take care of them, but his attitude as a museum curator is bad.
Yeah.
Well, I think that helps us really identify what species of owl that he is, just because for a lot of smaller owls, they eat a lot of insects. So maybe he has a contempt for them because he is potentially a screech owl who eats a lot of insects.
Okay, we're going into the insect area now. Speaking of blathers. So you can give stuff to blathers and it'll tell you about them. Something I was going to say about the fossils is actually... Oh, sorry. Hang on. Insects. Okay.
So if people want to go to the insect place, they have to go to the left.
Yeah,
right?
the left. So we're gonna go over to a cool place. You can all gather around me. So I have a lot of stuff in here. I have the Atlas moth, which is over up in the right corner, if you want to look at that. But first we're gonna go over and see one of my favorite parts in the museum. There's a little lab back here, which is got a great secret only if you have caught a certain insect. And I only first caught it today, and I was talking to Pete and Holly about trying to find it. And I finally got one. It's not one you would think about really ever caring about, but it is a genetics workhorse, so we're going to see it in a second. But the museum stuff, so Emily Grassley of the Field Museum was also on that Monterey Bay Aquarium speech. Oh, look, the tarantula and the scorpion are active now. Sometimes they're sleeping. So she was there to talk all about the fossils in the museum, and I really want her to come back because she was there very early in the game and they didn't have a whole lot of the fossils. Alright, so this is the lab. And we have flies, the common fruit fly, although I don't know if it's actually a fruit fly, because it is, I don't think it is usually going to be green. But while we're here, let's take a photo, people. I'm going to try to... I have an app on my phone that does the chat for the game, which is very clunky. Alright, let me do joy. Awesome. I could also
This is a very cute photo.
This is a cute photo. I could also do curiosity. Oh no, the thing
All
went
of you
away.
look adorable. Even if I have complete contempt for this game, this is
Why
very
do you have contempt for this game? There's so much science in it, Andy.
reasons.
Reasons? Okay. I've taken some pictures. Here we are in the lab. So I'm actually also going to use the photo thing to zoom in on this over here.
I am super excited that the DNA helix is of the correct handedness.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to say, okay, so look over on the left.
Nice.
There is a DNA double helix. So we have gone from this is fun. We've gone from Gregor Mendel's experiments.
What did you just do? I loved your little spin.
He changed clothes, right? Wait, what did Pete just do?
I have no idea. His character just spun for us.
That usually means you're, like, changing your clothes. Oh, he changed his mask to the flowers. He took off his mask. So we have gone now over... Let's see how much I can zoom in on the... That's not...
Whoever else just spun, you did an amazing job, too. So...
Yay, spinning. So we got, over on the left, we got the DNA helix. So we've gone from just Gregor Mendel's vague idea of what inheritance factors are to the genes are in our DNA. We know that now. And then Andy, you wanted to talk a little bit about what happened after Mendel and where we went from there in the early 1900s. Do you want to talk about that now?
It wasn't really that meaningful. It's just when Gregor Mendel's work started to, when there was the rediscovery of his work and the realization that there was a lot of merit to it, 4 different scientists all claimed to have rediscovered it. Each of them giving different levels of credit back to Gregor Mendel himself. So they all came from different countries in Europe, and at the turn of the century, there was a little bit of pride that led to some very bad things in the individual countries. And so it became this weird stand-in. And so when it was rediscovered by De Vries and von Tressermark and Correns, 3 different Europeans from around different countries, all of them just started trash talking each other and going like, we did this. We were the person who rediscovered everything. And then just there was some joy a year later when it finally made its way to the United States. Poor William Jasper Spillman was just like, oh yeah, I rediscovered it too. And the Europeans were like, what took you the extra year?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a lot of this due to like some obscure journal and also the languages that the journals were written in?
So most of the, it was, I believe, originally published in German. And so I believe that most of the scientists were in either Austria, Germany. I think von Tressermark was Austrian. Correns, I believe, was German. And I believe that De Vries was Dutch. So it was all people who could speak a little bit of German who got to it first. Although De Vries says that he figured it out all on his own, and that if he saw it at all by Mendel, it was just a weird coincidence.
Okay.
While both Correns and von Tressermark were like, yeah, we definitely cribbed it off of this other guy. Sorry,
okay.
I didn't mean to derail it.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit in depth here. But so we have from Mendel, what Andy was talking about is that there were several people around the turn of the 20th century who kind of rediscovered, I guess is the word, Mendel's work, and turned. I'm sort of just gonna park myself next to the DNA helix because I like it, and then basically tried to redo his work, and they were actually able to find that it held up. There was a guy though named Ronald Fisher who's a statistician who sucks. He was a bad dude, but he sort of like was he did a lot of statistics, was very important in coming up with tying these like Mendelian genetics concepts into population genetics, how this moves into like large groups of organisms. But he was like, Mendel's evidence was too perfect. If statistically he should have had some more like variation than he actually did. His statistics were too perfect, so he must have faked his data. And there's sort of a debate on whether Mendel did that. He may have had some sort of unconscious bias in like how he collected his results, but De Vries and the other people that Andy talked about that I don't remember all the names of were able to hold it up. And
Jordan, when you were running around your lab, someone asked what the white creature that we passed were, but I don't know what it was either.
Which place? Over here, this is a paper kite butterfly, and this is just showing like the chrysalises or the cocoons. I'm not an insect person, but this is sort of like the part in a museum where you would actually be breeding and taking care of the specimens. And then, sorry,
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. We got a hermit crab over here. I don't know what else is white around here. Then we have the tarantula and scorpion.
Sorry, continue.
We can talk more about like the different things that are around here though, and what I know about them, which is little, but I do know about fruit flies. So, the DNA over here. So, the thing about Ronald Fisher though was Mendel's theories did hold up, and also Ronald Fisher was a big proponent of eugenics, which is awful, and he had some really racist ideas, and I think this is a relevant thing to talk about because James Watson, also a known racist, recently, yeah, thank you for the emote, Pete, was the co-discoverer, I suppose, of the double helix model that you see here, except they kind of stole their information from Rosalind Franklin, who actually did the X-ray crystallography to come up with Dad? Dad what?
It's just the outfit name that pops up.
Oh, okay. No, it's okay. I was just confused what that was about. Dad. Oh, I get it. Okay. So James Watson was recently, for some of his really crappy beliefs, he was finally removed from the name of the Cold Spring Harbor Graduate School, which is really a relief. But I think there's a big thing in science where we do have to build off of other people's experiments and their far out, man. Oh, I like it. We have to build on people's discoveries, but we should not hold up these scientists who have these really racist and terrible opinions and have a lot of clout and a sort of a platform to talk about it. We should sort of not like deplatform those people and not hold them up as heroes like we kind of did for James Watson a long time ago. And that's a rant about social science, like the social nature of scientists and how we have to be careful about those things.
I was gonna
so Ronald
say,
Fisher was a bad dude.
Just to add briefly to that, I think this is a conversation that many other fields have had to deal with. Separating the art from the artist is something that a lot of different critiques.
Nice hat, nice balloon hat.
Art need to have those discussions. Science just needs to be doing the same exact thing.
Exactly. But so Ronald Fisher, Gregor Mendel. One other thing I love to talk about with Mendel is that, so Charles Darwin, who came up with, had his theory of natural selection, was working around the same time as Mendel. And I like to think that if I had a time machine, I would have just gone and introduced them to each other and been like, here's the missing piece to each of your puzzles. Now talk about it. I think that would have been fun.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Mm-hmm. So that is my time machine. That is my time machine wish. So
maybe someone has more info on this, but before Mendel, was the leading hypothesis as far as speciation of animals hybridization? Is that right? I don't remember.
I'm not sure, specifically about speciation though.
Okay.
I think you were talking about that idea of incomplete dominance and blending.
Right. There's the blending inheritance idea was what people talked about. This has been interesting being around with all these people. So, what were you saying, Andy?
Well, it's just that I think there weren't, biology is a relatively new field, which is very weird
great
to think
white
about.
shark. Oh, wow. That's awesome. I didn't know you can hold things up in the museum. Let me hold up my mola mola. It's gonna go through that person. The mola mola is crazy, by the way. I'm gonna capture that just on the Switch.
I would like just to remind you that there is a slight delay on the video of what you're talking about. So, we can see it now.
Oh no, I'm not going to talk about the coelacanth yet. I can talk about blue things. Let me show off my emperor butterfly. So one thing about blue, which we talked about with the blue roses, is how the color blue is very rare in the natural kingdom. A lot of places where people, a lot of things in the natural world have blue by a refraction instead of, I think, Andy, did you talk about this earlier?
No, but you should definitely go through this now.
Yeah, so are blue by refracting light in different ways, and a lot of insects actually do that. So this emperor butterfly, that is how it creates its blue wings. And it's a lot different than pigment color because it will change, the color will change based on the angle at which you're looking at the thing. Oh, we have an earth-boring dung beetle, I believe, over to my right. Andy, make sure to look at the TV, not at the stream.
Got it. Thank you.
We got an earth-boring dung beetle. Do you know much about dung beetles?
I can tell you a little bit, but not a lot. They are all beetles, just belong to the family Coleoptera. They have a false kind of wing on the outside where one of their front wings from a true Diptera or a true bug, they actually have modified that to be kind of a wing cover. But I don't know what specific we would want to talk about with the dung beetle.
I don't know. They're just in the game.
They're a very cool insect.
Yeah, people just showing those off. Okay, so we keep getting off from DNA. But, so, after Mendel and people sort of rediscovering Mendel in the early 1900s, we get actually a lot of people working on fruit flies as a genetic study organism. And something we would call them as a model organism, something that's commonly studied that has a lot of characteristics that make it easy to study, like the fact that flies breed really fast, and they also have those kind of like flower colors. They have characteristics we can observe really easily, like the color of their eyes is a very common one that you can study. And there were some folks, there was a guy named, I think, Herman Muller, there was Thomas Hunt Morgan, started working on flies in the early, 1910s, I think, and sort of started to figure out, okay, these genetic factors are related to chromosomes, which they could sort of see on a very faintly, I think, on microscopes, and related, and so the factors in the way that things were inherited are also related to where they are on the chromosome and the distance between them. So we got chromosomes in the early 1910s, and 1920s. We figured that out, and then people were like, okay, so they're inherited on chromosomes. What are chromosomes made out of? And maybe that's the thing that carries genetic information. So 1930s and 1940s, we've got, okay, we figured out it's DNA. We're pretty sure it's DNA. That was done by experiments from Hershey Chase and Oswald Avery. Then we got 1953 is when we have Rosalind Franklin doing taking X-ray pictures of DNA and trying to figure out the structure. Then you have Francis Crick and James Watson finally are able to tell us that we've got this lovely helix structure over here is what DNA looks like. It's got phosphate sugar backbone, so this sort of like a twisted ladder, and the rungs of the ladder the sides of the ladder are always the same, but the rungs are 4 different possibilities, and you've got letters that DNA is sort of made out of, like letters in an alphabet almost, and those letters would be A, T, C, and G for adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. Now, just think of them as A, T, C, and G, though. So we have this model of DNA sort of changed everything, even though we don't really want to give Watson a lot of credit anymore for it because he's a terrible person. But so that's finally got there in the 1950s, and now we are going to move forward in time a little bit more to the fact that now with fruit flies and genes and DNA, there's nothing. Wait, is this how I get out of here? Nope. Oh, here it is. Sorry, I got lost for a second. And DNA, we can now do, in the present day, a whole lot of interesting experiments and find out marry a lot of other fields of biology as well with genetics. So, if people get lost, I need to just put in the chat again that we're going to be in the fish area. While I am here, for people in the chat, or people in the YouTube thing, I just wanted to point out a fact I learned from the Monterey Bay and Field Museum streams, or not the Field Museum, but so they had an insect entomologist on. This is a bagworm. There are apparently some species of bagworms that breed. When they breed, so bagworms have go through metamorphosis, I think, and are in those little sacs that you see, sort of kind of like a butterfly chrysalis. But apparently, and they hatch into moths. But the male bagworm hatches into a moth and then fertilizes the female bagworm while the bagworm is still in the bag, has not hatched, and the female will lay her eggs in the bag, never become a moth, will never emerge from that metamorphosis, and dies there, and then the babies are born. Yes, I agree with the sweating weirded out emote over there. Thank you, Pete. So that's a fun fact about bagworms. Did any of the other three of you know that?
I did not. That's fascinating and a little scary.
I thought it was incredibly unsettling. So this is the bagworm. And over here we have, just as we showed people stuff. Oh, the Atlas moth is moved up here now. We've got the Atlas moth, one of the largest moths in the world, I think.
Yeah.
It feels very weird which animals they chose to include on Animal Crossing. Do you know anything about how they chose that?
I don't know.
Like
I am not sure. That would be an interesting question to ask the developers. I think also it's interesting to see what they like add multiple species of. Because for example, I think they just have one octopus and like several species of carp, a lot of different butterflies. So there's like some animals that they're multiple species of, but really they only have one umbrella thing. So I don't know. I really don't know how they did that. Let's also stop and maybe ask the chat if anyone has any questions, see if what comments people are putting in there. Chat, what are you thinking? Let's go over to the main lobby now and we'll ask the chat.
I feel like there's some great comments that are coming through on the chat. I'm trying to monitor it.
Someone flew around up there.
But I don't see a lot of specific questions as of yet.
Okay. Well, thanks for your comments, everyone. So we are now going to head... Where's Pete? Pete. We lost you. You're coming? Okay, there you are.
I'm on my way.
Okay, so we are... Let me take a little picture with us and Blathers now.
Are you going to make Pete pose with Blathers, his owl enemy?
Yes, Pete, go give Blathers a hug.
This is as close as I can give to a hug.
Try harder, Pete.
I still respect him. I'd like to debate Blathers.
Okay, so we're gonna go over and see the fish now, and we're gonna talk about my favorite fish that is in the fish exhibit. I think this is also, the fish area is like incredibly beautiful, and I have learned a lot from, obviously the aquarium talks a lot about it. I'm gonna just show you. They have some really amazing, really big fish that I only really caught recently. So that big one back there, Andy, can you see it? Is the arapaima, which is this like huge Amazon River fish.
Yeah, it's a really neat fish. It's in the Amazon,
crazy.
Right?
It's what?
Yeah, it's native to the Amazon, right?
I think so.
I can see it. Cool.
So that is the arapaima. I think it's like, I don't know if it's one of the largest like freshwater fish in the world.
It is the largest freshwater fish in South America.
In South America, cool. I wonder what the largest ever freshwater fish is. So we're gonna head over to the ocean. So for the people in the game, we're heading over to the deep ocean area.
The largest freshwater fish in the world is debated between two different types of sturgeon.
Oh, really? Okay. So we're gonna go up here.
Hey, Jordan?
Yeah.
There was a question about where the bagworm is. That was outside, like hanging from the tree, right?
Yeah, it's hanging from the tree right by the entrance to the insect area. We got a hammerhead shark over there. The game calls this one a Napoleon fish, but this is a humphead wrasse, which I think is really interesting because it is one of the types of fish that changes its sex like throughout its life based on, I think, like conditions like the water temperature or something. Or also, I think the parrotfish is the one where it changes based on like the proportion of males and females, I think, in the colony, right?
The humpheaded wrasse is actually also called the Napoleon fish. So it is an acceptable other name. And it is sometimes called the Napoleon wrasse as well.
Yeah. I've just heard it mainly like humphead wrasse, or I think that's the more common name. Let me go
It is.
over, take one with the humphead wrasse. I am not a great Animal Crossing photographer, so I have also not done this before. This kind of streaming.
Blue Planet 2, they do a really nice little overview of the gender switching of the humphead wrasse.
Interesting.
I think there's a whole episode.
Okay, I'm gonna post in. Sorry, I'm posting in the chat in Animal Crossing. To the deep ocean, which is this way. I get lost in here sometimes, actually. Ah! Okay. We're gonna go this way.
I'm going to share an article from the BBC about the wrasse on the chat, just because, like Pete said, it was featured in Blue Planet. So let me add that into the chat really quickly.
Cool. We got some other big fish over here. You can see the mola mola up there. The Monterey Bay Aquarium was so ecstatic about getting their first mola mola in the game. The people who are from the Shed Aquarium, I'd love to hear your thoughts on like the fish in the game, and also maybe tell someone on your social media team for the Shed to maybe get in on this Animal Crossing streaming, because I'd love to see what the Shed has to talk about. So the mola mola is actually really fascinating. I don't want to make fun of it, but I do think that it looks like what you would get if you asked like a three-year-old to close their eyes and then draw a fish. I think is what you get is the mola mola.
100%.
But it is actually apparently a very efficient swimmer. Another interesting thing about it is that it I think lays the most eggs of any organism or like any animal in the world. It can lay like 300 million eggs, which is crazy. I guess it has a very low survival rate of those eggs. Let's see, what else do I know about the mola mola? It's also a sunfish, so that means that we're gonna go over here now. So that means that it basically will swim around, but then if it gets too cold, it'll go up to the surface and sort of lay horizontally and sort of warm itself up in the sun. That's why I just called it a sunfish. But they're really interesting looking and really weird. But I'm going to change back to my ChiTownBio outfit now. There we go. I can be a wizard. You're a wizard, Harry. But no, I'm going to be... Oh, that's not what I wanted. I'm going to be ChiTownBio. Everyone's changing into their cool outfits. Okay, so I'm going to give... I feel like I'm giving a little lecture over here. But, so... General Kenobi, I like it. So, over here in the middle of the screen, this sort of black and blue fish that you see in the light here. Hi, hello, Cindy.
Is that a yellow submarine?
Do we all live in it?
No, I mean to your left.
Yeah, do we all live in it?
Yes?
We all live in a yellow submarine?
I mean, I don't live there, and I've never gotten an invitation, but sure.
Okay, what was So, that sort of big, not the oarfish and not the anglerfish, the other big fish that you see down there in this deep ocean area is called a coelacanth. So this is one of the rarest fish in the game. You can only catch it in the rain. I don't know why that is. I don't think that has a scientific basis, but it is pretty rare, and it is actually quite rare in real life, and it has a very interesting genetic place that we can talk about now in our sort of history of genetics. I think it's really cool that we can kind of make a whole chronology out of this, going through different areas of Animal Crossing. So the coelacanth is a lobed finfish, as opposed to a ray finfish. So that means that it is actually quite close to evolutionarily to tetrapods. And actually there was a sort of fight for a long time between the coelacanth people and the lungfish people. So there's another fish called the lungfish. It does actually have lungs and can breathe air. And people started duking it out between who is most closely related to tetrapods, or things with four limbs that live on land, like mammals, reptiles, us, we're mammals. But so no one really knew this for a while, and people thought that coelacanths were actually extinct until about like the 1930s when someone found one off the coast of South Africa. And then later, I think in the 90s, people were able to find one off the coast of Indonesia, which was a different species. Pete, turn around so I can take a picture. So you're looking down. Oh well. You're moving again. Anyway, so we didn't really have a way to figure out, well, what is the actually closest relative until the rise of genomics. So we have genes, our genes are in our DNA, then we have genomics, is the study of like all of the DNA in an organism, all of your genes, all of it at one time. And that's has really only come about, we've got genetics has existed for about 150 years maybe. Genomics has only really been a thing since we've been able to sequence DNA, which was the human genome, for example, was sequenced in 2003. So that's a relatively new area of study. And I can talk a little bit about it after we talk about the coelacanth, if you want to know more, because I was a researcher in a lab for a little while and ran a DNA sequencing machine. It was most of my job. So the coelacanth, once we have genomics and can read all of the DNA, its entire genome, once we know all of its DNA, they were then actually to like compare it to other known organisms in different taxa and figured out, and took the lungfish DNA, they were then able to figure out using phylogenetics that the lungfish, not the coelacanth, was in fact the most closely related to tetrapods of living organisms, of the living fish. So I think that's pretty fascinating. If anyone has any questions in the chat about DNA sequencing and genomics, I'd love to talk about that. But I think that is a cool thing about the coelacanth. That paper came out in 2013.
I will share that paper. It's from
in
2017. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, I think it's also in the YouTube description, which I updated a little while ago. But it's really interesting paper. The African DNA, the sequence of the African coelacanth. I don't remember what the title of the paper is, but
I don't think I've ever read that paper. I'm excited to check it out.
I had a genomics professor in college who was very excited about reading the coelacanth paper, so that's something that I read in one of my classes. So that's pretty interesting. All right, so we're gonna go now finally to the fossil. So we're sort of coming up on the close of what I have planned here. We are going to see a fossil and talk about maybe the future of genetics and what we can do with it. So we've really gone 150 years in the past, and we've done the present, and now we're going to go into the future. Let me post and make sure everyone knows we're going to fossils.
The paper that you posted is a little bit older. That's from 2013, and it's actually a really great paper advocating for the coelacanth. There's just been a lot of debate back and forth.
Okay, it didn't let me post for some reason. Wait, what was the newer paper?
It's from 2017, and it advocates that the lungfish is our closer relative. And they have a lot of really great graphics, and it's also public access, or open access.
Cool. Yeah, so take a look at that. So we are also, when we're down here, please don't ask me questions about fossils, except for the ones I'm going to show you, because I do not know much about that. I am not a paleontologist. So, but here we are at the very beginning. This is the last universal common ancestor, Luca. I think the game does a really good job of talking about the branching of the tree of life from the very beginning of when life emerged from a primordial chemical soup to the present day. And I think it's interesting that they came up with sort of Pete, you shared an article with me that was really interesting about, oh, by the way, if you step on this blue dot, you can see the meteor up in the corner that wiped out the dinosaurs. So if you want to, people in the game want to step on that, it's kind of cool. So the game does a really good job of sorting the specimens in the museum really by ecosystem for the fish and the insects, and also by timeline and not just whatever looks cool together. Also, fun fact, the T-Rex over here was modeled after Sue in the Field Museum. So they got the model from an actual cool, like the most complete dinosaur T-Rex. Whoa, yeah. So, they do a really good job of, I think, organizing the museum. I think some museum curators were in an article Pete sent me they were like, they've done an actual really good job of. Oh, people didn't realize that blue dot does that. Cool. They've done a really good job, I think, of organizing the museum. So what we're going to do is we are going to go over here and see the mammoth and talk about sort of genetic futures and what the mammoth has to do with that. I'm going to go sit over here and look at the mammoth. So I think I helped find part of this mammoth structure. So I actually share the island with my husband, who started it. So I came in later, and I don't really know what happens in the beginning of the game. But he got a lot of the fossils, but then I found a lot of the more recent stuff. But we have filled out the entire fossil area of the museum. But so this is the mammoth. Interestingly, the mammoth has been extinct for 10,000 years, but we also, speaking of genomes, know the whole mammoth genome, and that has a lot to do with how let me do an emote. I'm really bad at doing the emotions. How they are often found frozen, like really intact in Siberia because they lived in such a cold climate. Like they're just sort of in that permafrost and able to be like preserved for a really long time. So we have really complete mammoth genetic information. And so there's a guy named George Church, who is a very prominent synthetic biologist. And, hello. Hate? Hi. They're having a thing over there. So George Church is a big synthetic biology researcher. And he has sort of a pet project and an idea that we could really even bring back the mammoth that this is maybe not outside of the realm of possibility if we took the mammoth genome and figured out what's different about it from the modern elephant, and maybe added some mammoth genes into an elephant genome. Like, would we then have a mammoth? Which sounds like some Jurassic Park stuff in here, but also if you, I think if you heard me talking to Blathers, I don't know if I ever gave it away, I have the Jurassic Park theme song as the theme in the game. I can maybe show it off again later, but it seems like a Jurassic Park kind of idea, but this is like the idea of synthetic biology merging sort of this futuristic idea of engineering with the tools of life is a big thing that I think Holland and Andy and I are involved in, that I looked at a lot at in college. But it's an interesting way to think about the future, I think. It's like, could we really bring back extinct species? And if they're part of the mass extinction event that we have caused, like, is there actually an ethics argument that maybe if we can bring them back, maybe we should? Would that mess up the ecology that we have now? I think it's just a really interesting way to think about the future that we could have, because there is so much possibility now we have with genetic technologies. So there's an idea. George Church thinks we could bring back the mammoth. I'm going to leave you all with that. The other three of you, do you have anything to add to the mammoth discussion?
Well, I added an article just because earlier this year, there was a really great series of articles that came out about an island of mammoths that probably lived about 6,000 years after all other mammoths died out.
Really?
Which is just, yep. I shared the link. It's worth following. And in terms of de-extinction, we've done de-extinction with some organisms. The one that actually worked was with the Iberian ibex, but it died very shortly after it was born. But there have been successful de-extinction attempts, which is make of it what you will.
Yeah, this is sort of a like make of it what you will, but sort of putting out there things that you might not have known are actually possible, and then should we as a society, think about if we can, should we? Sort of, again, we don't want the Jurassic Park future necessarily, but what were you about to say, Andy?
To be fair, Jurassic Park would never happen because of all the things you've talked about with genetics. Why would you add a frog genome to a bunch of birds?
Mm-hmm. Sort of the evolutionary path of that.
The science of Jurassic Park, I don't mean to be harsh on it, does not hold up.
I mean, yeah. I mean, with science fiction, there's a lot that you have to take liberties with, so. Alright, so, Pete, Andy, or Hala, do you have anything else to add? Because I think this is the, where I have the end of what I have planned for this. We can wander around a little more in the museum if people want.
I have actually a favorite part over here.
Oh, you have a favorite part of the museum?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not a favorite part, but an interesting part. Because this is all oriented sort of like Tree of Life, below you have the Australopithecus skull.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as you stand right here, it's like you're a part of the exhibit. A spotlight comes down.
I didn't know that. That's so cool.
So it makes you a part of the museum. It's sort of a neat little...
Wait, let me take everyone, like, go do that and we'll take a picture of it. Alright, I'm gonna... hang on. It's Pete. Oh no, it's not gonna see it in the... it won't... okay,
Here,
it won't go all the way down.
Then you take it.
No, someone else in the trap. Yes, we are trapped. Yes, I know. This is not an area of the museum that... Yep, there we go. This is not an area of the museum that seemed to be meant for multiple people to be there at one time. Oh, this is cool. This is cute.
So one person stands on that last thing, and then...
Yeah, it's just showing where your place would be.
Okay, Pete, you can go together.
And so those outlines, are those the other animals and where they would be? Like, so you can see characters. Like, so I'm guessing this one is a rhino, this one is a pig. Those are where those evolutionarily would be compared to where the fossils are.
Exactly.
Right. All right, that was fun.
So right now, someone is waving at the point of, I can't see the animal outline.
See, that the other reason I tell people not to ask me about these is that I do not know anything about these other things. The one is like, what are they called? Megacerops. Andy, what do you know about fossils?
Well, I think what's actually really interesting, if you go back up to those outlines of the animals up there, I think that if you go, back to where the humans would be on this chart, you can actually see that there's an outline next to the outline of people that looks like a mouse. So there's a space for humans, a space for a monkey, and a space for a mouse. And I think one of the things we talked about earlier was model organisms and how important they are. And I think this kind of gives a little bit of an indication of why people use mice as a model organism. They are close to humans compared to so many other organisms, but they're not that close. If you look at this chart and you're following this trend line of how closely related organisms are, mice are close, they're not that close. And so they're a great model organism for studying some aspects of human physiology, not others.
I am impressed that you made that connection, Andy. I think that's cool.
Yeah, it's a great connection.
Yeah.
My brain is full of jelly and crisscrossed wires.
All right.
At least it's raspberry jelly, which is delicious.
So, after seeing the whole museum, Andy, has this game grown on you at all, or still no?
Pass.
Pass? Okay.
I don't want to answer that question.
Oh, pass as in, I don't want to answer the question.
Okay.
This interview is over. No further questions.
Okay, so, yeah, I think this is, so I think we will now exit the museum. I think people are going to take a minute to follow me. There we go. Do we have any questions in the chat? I think it's been lovely to be with all of you here. This would be a great time for questions.
One of the questions that we got was, so the chart goes monkey, mice, and then human. And so we kind of passed that already. And I apologize for that. I didn't see the question right away, Mary. I'm so sorry about that. Monkeys and humans are close together. In between monkeys and humans on that chart, there was the Australopithecus fossil, which was that Lucy?
I don't know if it was like modeled after Lucy specifically, but it does say Australopithecus.
But then you see that monkeys were closest to the humans and Australopithecus, but you can see that line went further back. That line is showing taxonomy. It's called sometimes a cladogram, sometimes it's called a...
Pete, turn around.
Wait, what's happening? Oh, sorry. It's called phylogeny. It's called, there are a bunch of different names for this kind of chart. And it's not complete. You never will see a complete chart just because, you know, we have fossils of Australopithecus, but there might be tons of different things between us and between that Australopithecus. There might be things that died off that were parts of rapid times of evolution. And so they're not complete. So if the mouse and the monkey's on there, they're there, but it's not going to be a complete chart or really tell you all of the information about evolution.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any other questions?
I have a weird Animal Crossing question.
What is your weird Animal Crossing question?
Could you make your avatar Blathers so that you could be Blathers talking to Blathers?
No. I mean,
No,
you
I
do have different clothing options that sometimes they can be like animal costumes, but I do not think there's a Blathers costume.
You can't make an avatar that is an owl.
No. You cannot do that.
I would be an owl.
Okay.
Or I would be a crow, probably, but that's a different story.
I had a thought and I forgot what it was.
I don't think there are any corvids in this game.
No. Oh, I have a.
If this was trying to win me over, the fact that there are no corvids, is there at least a blue jay? What do the fans of Toronto baseball do?
That's something maybe they could add would be great, would be just more organisms. They don't have a great, so they have all the flowers are like more ornamental stuff, but I feel like it would be great if they would name more of the trees. They just have like hardwood tree and evergreen tree, and that's it. Like, what are the tree species, guys? And,
I would love to talk about trees.
Well, there's not really a lot of trees. There are fruit trees, so we can talk about pollinators. I think maybe if we want to do this again sometime, we should leave some stuff for next time. But
that sounds great.
But I think this is where we'll leave off here. I have one more pro gamer tip to leave. You'll see also, you'll notice up here at the top, they've added an art gallery. Something that I had fun with in my house, which you can do in Animal Crossing, is you can make your own art gallery because sorry, I can hear my husband in the other room. He needs to be quiet. You can go to like whatever your local, maybe not your local museum, but some art museums like the Met are actually putting their pieces of art, photos of them in a public access format that you can use, and then make a custom design out of it in Animal Crossing. So you can then display that around your island or in your house, and then you have your own little art gallery. So in my house, I have a little Van Gogh museum. So that is my pro gamer tip to you to leave as we go off, because we do Great White Shark.
Great White Shark.
I do think also it's a great reminder that there are so many great museums out there. If you are in Chicago, I'm so happy that people from the Shed and from the Field Museum came tonight, or that are involved in those. Please make sure that you are throwing some cash, if you have it available, at them as well, just because we want these museums to be out there when we come back out of this period
Absolutely.
of isolation.
And
I mean, we would also love your money, ChiTownBio, but please make sure you're patronizing our museums as well.
Yeah, and if you are going to, probably in the next little bit, I think maybe some museums are starting to open up. If you do decide to go to a museum or other cultural institution, please try to adhere to the distancing and mask wearing policies as much as you can to keep people safe. Please wear masks. So the people here, three folks with masks. Good mask wearing. So I think this is where we're gonna end. I think maybe if folks want to start, who are in the game, start to head to the airport. It's been really great playing with you guys. I didn't get to see if people, and also thank you for watering the flowers. I didn't get to see if people were able to find all the prizes I hit everywhere. But if you did not, maybe take a minute and go run around and find them. Or actually, I think we're running a little bit. We got some time, but I think this is sort of a natural close to where we have ended. So I'm gonna maybe kick everyone off the island now. So,
you've done a great job of talking us all through this.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so I think we'll hang out a little bit here. Let me post in the group, in the game. We are wrapping up.
What time zone is your island in?
It is in Central Time. It is in our time
in
zone.
Lake Michigan?
Thanks for coming. That's not what I wanted to.
Say that again, Andrew?
There we go. Anytime. All right. No, are you saying like it's getting dark kind of early? All right, people are heading out.
No, it's dark out my window here in Chicago, and it's getting dark on your island.
Yeah. But yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Like the thing is, my computer is the console is set to Central Time. I don't know where in the world the island is. I think it is a mashup of all the biomes in the world. I don't know where technically the island is.
I feel like you get to make that up.
You get to. It can be wherever you want it to be.
Maybe it was inside of us all along.
All right, I think we can probably end the stream here, and maybe we'll come at you for another thing. Also, I think while we're here, we should have mentioned this at the beginning, but thank you very much to also the Chicago Council on Science and Technology. They helped promote our event. They're an awesome promotional partner. Their logo is actually is the second logo up in the top corner that you will see there. And they host more than 30 low-cost or free science events in Chicago every year. So they're doing some great work. Also, super into science engagement like we are. So go check out their events on Facebook and Twitter. And also, if you want to keep up with us, thank you, Sally. If you want to keep up with us on Facebook and Twitter. And also, if you want to join our Slack channel, we can put some information on that in the chat. Just send us an email at ChiTownBio@gmail.com. We can have some more in-depth discussions there.
We'll also be posting all of our events on Meetup and Eventbrite. And so if you join our Meetup, that might be the easiest way to find out about upcoming events. Mm-hmm. Jordan, there's also a comment in the chat from Alia, who's being very helpful in saying that if you press the minus button, that way you don't have to sit through the loading of everyone leaving. You can kick everyone out that way.
Oh, really? Oh, right now?
I don't know.
I think if we do that, it might not save the flowers being watered, though.
Got it.
I think if you press the minus button, like if you kick everyone out, then the flowers will not have been watered. So I think I'll just like.
Well, you are being a very friendly and gracious host. I would be the get the heck out of my house host. So, kudos to you.
Also, fun fact, I have like palm trees lining this little area, and I accidentally cut this one down. So I have like 5 big palm trees, and then this little one, it bothers me, but I just cut it down by accident.
Alia is sharing that it will save everything, even if you do the minus. That's if you shut down the game that it won't save everyone. I feel like Alia might be an expert on Animal Crossing. So
Okay,
that was appreciated.
I trust it. I will do that and see if that. I trust you, Alia. We'll do that, and this will be done faster. After
Looks
this
like
person.
someone's leaving. The musical stylings of Dr. Andy Scarpelli.
A communication error has occurred. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. I got the same thing.
Oh no.
Maybe it's the servers? Okay, after this So I think let's just wrap up the stream itself. And then people can continue to... Oh, is everyone gone now?
I think so. I'm back on my island.
Okay. These are all
Oh,
shiny, so they're watered. So I think that's working. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all for coming. And thank you people in the game for watering my flowers and listening to us talk about Animal Crossing and science. And thank you again to the Chicago Council on Science and Technology. And maybe we'll do this again. Let us know also on our various channels if you have any ideas for other games to play that have something to do with biology. That would be a lot of fun. So I think we're gonna...
just fun events that you are interested in, maybe us trying to host. If you come up with an idea, we would love to put your ideas into motion.
Absolutely.
If we can.
All right. Okay, I'm now going to end the stream. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. And we'll come into it later.
Thanks for having us.